You know, some lives are measured in quiet, peaceful moments. But others, they're defined by the fire they walk through. We're about to dive into the story of a man whose faith, whose character, whose love was tested to the absolute breaking point, forged in the harsh deserts of 7th century Arabia. Wow, that line right there, it just says it all, doesn't it? Before he was this leader of nations, he was a man tested by fire. And this isn't just some dry history lesson, okay? This is a story about conviction. We're going to explore what it looks like when a belief, a truly deeply held belief, comes face to face with the most brutal opposition imaginable. Okay, so to really get the weight of this trial, you've got to understand the man first. Who was he before all this? Well, before Islam, Abu Bakr, he was a pillar of Makkah society. And I don't just mean he was some wealthy merchant. No, he was way more than that. He was a respected leader, a real intellectual cornerstone of the entire city. I mean, this guy had some serious standing. Just picture his home for a second. It was like the place to be for the city's best and brightest. The intellectual elite, they all flocked there. And not just for his knowledge, which was vast, but for his character. See, people came for his wisdom, but they stayed for his incredible kindness and his gentle spirit. And you know what's really amazing? It wasn't just the elite who came to him. As we can see from the source text, everyday people, ordinary folks, they were always at his home too. They were drawn in by that same kindness, that same hospitality. He just had this rare gift, you know, the ability to connect with absolutely everyone, from the top of society to the bottom. And that tells you so much about the man he was, long before his entire world was about to change.
So then, it happens. This respected, beloved man receives a message that completely turns his world upside down. He accepts Islam. And for him, faith was never, ever going to be a passive thing.
And this is really the key point here. For him, faith wasn't just, saying some words. It wasn't just a declaration you make. He learned directly from the messenger of Allah that true faith, well, it demands action. It demands striving. It demands you to completely recenter your entire life around it. Yeah, it was a total all-in commitment. He came to understand that your faith isn't really complete until you offer up everything, yourself, all that you own, your entire existence, to the Lord of the worlds. Just think about that for a second. It's such a powerful, all-encompassing idea. In this verse from the Quran, this really became his compass, his entire operating system. It's this incredible declaration that every single part of your life, your prayers, your actions, your living, even your dying, it all belongs to God and God alone. And for him, this wasn't just a nice idea. It was the reality he lived every single day. So, what do you do when you have a conviction this deep, this profound? You can't keep it to yourself, right? You share it. And that's exactly what he did. He immediately became this incredibly active supporter of the new faith. But here's the thing. How he did it was just as important as what he was saying. I mean, he was the living, breathing example of this divine instruction. He didn't just hear these words, he embodied them. His approach, it wasn't about being confrontational or aggressive. Not at all. It was rooted in the very things everyone already knew him for. His wisdom, his kindness, that warm, cordial attitude. He invited people with gentleness, with genuine respect. And the results? They were absolutely extraordinary. Because of his wise, gentle invitation, some of the absolute heaviest hitters in Makkah embraced Islam. We're talking about men like Az-Zubair, Uthman, Bulha, Saad, Abdurrahman. I mean, these guys were the creme de la creme of their society. And they would go on to become the bedrock, the very foundation of that early Muslim community. But you know how it goes. When you have a society that's built on old power and tradition, a call for radical change, even a gentle one, well, it can sound like a declaration of war. And this is where everything changes. This is where his faith would face its most brutal test. Not in some quiet debate, but right in the heart of Makkah's Sacred Mosque. So let's be real for a second. It's one thing to have faith when things are easy, right? But what happens when that same faith puts your life, your very existence on the line? Just how deep does that conviction run when it's met with pure, brutal physical violence? So the moment of truth arrives. The small, early Muslim community. There are only 38 of them. And he insists on taking the message public. He stands up right there in the Sacred Mosque and becomes the first person to ever openly call people to Allah and his messenger. And the response? It was immediate. and it was violent. The polytheists just swarmed him and the other believers, beating them without any mercy. The attack was just savage. One man in particular, Utbah ibn Rabi'a, this evildoer, he took his double-soled shoes and just started beating him in the face, over and over. He beat him so badly that, as the source text chillingly tells us, you couldn't even distinguish his nose from the rest of his face anymore, just unrecognizable. It got so bad, his own tribe had to step in and save him from being killed. They carried him home on a blanket, and they were sure he was already dead, or at least dying. He was just hovering there, right between life and death. That was the price he paid for daring to speak his faith out loud. And then, this happens. This is the moment that reveals absolutely everything. After hours of being unconscious, he finally starts to come to. And when he speaks, his first words, they aren't about his pain. They aren't about his attackers. They aren't even about whether he's going to live or die. His very first thought, his very first question, is for someone else. What happened to the messenger of Allah? I mean, just let that sink in. In the middle of all that horror, his actions, they proved that his love for the Prophet and his faith was so much bigger than any pain his body could feel. His own survival, it wasn't even his main concern. His family, they're frantic, they're begging him, please eat something, drink something, you need to recover. But he makes a vow, a solemn promise. He will not let a single drop of water or a single bite of food pass his lips until he can be taken to the Prophet, until he can see with his own two eyes that he is safe. So what are the lessons here? What can we pull from this absolutely incredible story? Well, first, there's the sheer courage to proclaim the truth. I mean, he was ready to die for what he believed. Second, you see this amazing resilience. He knew exactly what could happen, but he wasn't afraid for himself anymore. And third, and maybe this is the most powerful lesson of all, you see a love that is so immense, it just completely overshadows any personal suffering. His heart was just so full of love for Allah and his messenger that his own agony, it barely even registered. And this whole story, it leaves us with this one profound question that has echoed down through the centuries. When you're beaten, when you're broken, when you're hovering right on the edge of death, when it feels like everything is being stripped away from you, what's left? What truly remains? For this man, the answer was crystal clear: a faith and a love that was absolutely, positively unbreakable.